This is the Louie T Network.
In the lab room.
Hey Peyton, man, it's a real nice house you got. Thanks for inviting me over. So what'd you say we were having again, Peyton? I don't know about you, but I like mine dark. You do too? Excellent. Man, that was great. What are we having to wash that down with? What do you call that? Phew. That thing was ice cold. You call it revenge? Huh. I'd try that one again. Whew. My compliments to the chef, man. Who helped you prepare that meal? You guys are one dangerous group, I tell you, man. You guys can whip some stuff up in that kitchen. Hey, Payne, thanks for the meal, man. I really enjoyed myself, and I enjoyed the meal. It was delicioso. Man, did the Denver Broncos embarrass the Baltimore Ravens or what? Can't say that I saw that one coming, but can't say that I'm very surprised about it either. Welcome to the show, this In the Lab Room exclusive. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. And I'm just here to break down the Baltimore Ravens and Denver Broncos matchup from Thursday night. And you know the score, 27 for the Ravens, 49 for the Denver Broncos, in a game that was 17-14 at the half. Game started very slow. We all know about the delay that occurred at the beginning of the game, pushing it back about 20-25 minutes or so. Teams really had to alter their schedules in terms of warming up and getting into their pregame rituals. And so game got off to a slow start. Peyton Manning and that offense wasn't really in rhythm. Neither were the Baltimore Ravens. And with the Ravens, you kind of expected that. I don't know how you guys felt about the Ravens coming into this game offensively, but I was not convinced that this offense was going to be something that needed to be feared going into this first game. Maybe when the Ravens gain continuity on the offensive line and everyone is playing at a high level and they find out who that number one and number two and number three guy is that Joe Flacco can get the football to. I think we know who number one is going to be. It's going to be Torrey Smith. But once we define roles on this offense in terms of who's that number two guy going to be, who's that tight end that he can trust, because Ed Dixon was dropping the football left and right. Dallas Clark wasn't too far behind him in the drop department either. And so you got to define roles. Who are guys that Joe Flacco can trust? Tell you what, that Mr. Brown fellow out of Georgia, that undrafted rookie, looks really good. So that's someone that you can look to maybe in the future as a guy that could be that number two receiver, because I don't think Jacoby Jones is that guy. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But if you're the Ravens, I wasn't sure what this offense would look like. And so that slow start to the game really wasn't that big of a deal to me for the Ravens. But for the Broncos, a little off-putting. Didn't expect them to come out and not be able to put up points early on. They didn't score a touchdown in the first quarter, did the Denver Broncos. Ravens got on the board first. And you could see the Broncos starting to get into a rhythm, but you weren't sure that they would be able to have it click the way that they did in this game. But we say this all the time. Can't afford to turn the football over. Turnovers will kill you in this league. And even though the Ravens were able to start this game off And they were the aggressors early on, and they were the ones that were able to force the issue. They were the ones making Peyton Manning a little uncomfortable in the pocket. They were the ones that were able to force an early turnover from Wes Welker. They weren't able to withstand that tempo, that pace, that amount of intensity that it took to win this game on the road. I said from the outset of this game, I felt like the Ravens were in a little bit of a bind because they should have been at home in this game. And I know I'm talking about old news and I'm talking about something that they could not control and couldn't change, but the fact of the matter is they were behind the 8 ball in this game against a team that probably is better than them to begin with. And then you go on the road. It was just the perfect storm for the Denver Broncos to really have their way with this Baltimore Ravens team. And then the third quarter came. 21 unanswered points. And if you want to go into the fourth as well, 28 unanswered points from the Denver Broncos before the Ravens finally woke up and realized that, hey, we need to get back into this football game. It could have been a lot worse if Danny Trevathan doesn't decide to have one of those Deshaun Jackson moments and drop the football before the goal line. This thing is even worse. So the Ravens could have even been blown out worse in this game. And so you look at what the Broncos were able to do, and they got the offense going in the second half. The Ravens helped them with turnovers, turn the football over. Flacco throws a couple of picks. Guys are dropping passes. Ed Dixon, Dallas Clark drops a touchdown pass. They don't challenge, do the Ravens, a Wes Welker drop on third down. They allow them to continue that drive. The next play is a 45 or 50-yard completion to Demaryius Thomas that sets up a touchdown that really extends the lead and kind of puts the pressure and the onus on this Ravens offense. All of this coming after the Ravens had a punt blocked after the Broncos had taken the lead with a touchdown early on the first possession of the third quarter. And so things were starting to snowball for this Ravens football team. They could not pick back up the intensity that it took, and Peyton Manning had figured this defense out. And the thing that you felt comfortable about if you were a Ravens fan coming into this game was the defense. You thought, hey, this defense is much improved. We've got a lot of different guys out here that we feel will upgrade this defense, but you did not see it in this football game, especially in the second half. That secondary looked extremely lost. And I didn't think this team would miss Ray Lewis as much in terms of his production on the field. But I felt like Ed Reed was a guy that they would truly miss because it's someone that you have to account for in that secondary. And you could tell Peyton Manning had absolutely no respect for this secondary whatsoever. He hung in the pocket, took some shots. He found Julius Thomas. He found Demaryius Thomas. He found Wes Welker. Eric Decker didn't even have a good game, and these guys were getting gashed in that secondary. That lets you know that this Denver Broncos team has one heck of an explosive offense, and we already knew that coming into the season. But to see it on full display in this game, and you didn't even get the best of Eric Decker, it's a scary proposition to think about how explosive this offense can really be once Eric Decker finally joins the parade of riches at the skill positions for the Denver Broncos. This is a dangerous team, and this Ravens defense was not equipped with the right personnel to get the job done. Guys weren't comfortable in their roles, and you could see that it's going to take some time, maybe a little bit longer than we all anticipated for this Ravens defense to gel. There wasn't enough pressure on Peyton Manning. That's number one. You thought that the combination of Dumerville and Suggs would generate pressure, but they did their job. No one else stepped up to the forefront. You were expecting guys like Spears and maybe Chris Canty to come in and help you get pressure. It did not manifest itself. Canty did get a sack in this game, but the pressure was not consistent. Peyton Manning was able to be comfortable in the pocket, find his receivers, and allow them to make plays with the football. And so a very inauspicious start for the Baltimore Ravens on the defensive side of the football. You look at this offense, and there just aren't enough weapons for Joe Flacco. And I already knew that. I had already talked about it at great lengths before the season started, and I was not impressed with what I saw out of this Ravens offense in the preseason. I'm still not impressed. And this is the underlining theme for me with the Ravens. Get the football to Ray Rice. I don't understand why the Ravens aren't getting him the football. I know he's splitting time and carries with Bernard Pierce, and that's a good thing. That's going to extend his career. That's going to give Ray Rice some longevity. But at the same time, Ray Rice needs the football. This offense needs Ray Rice to have the football for them to maximize their effectiveness. And 12 carries is not enough for Ray Rice. He also had 8 catches, so that's 20 touches in all in total, but it doesn't matter. It's not enough for Ray Rice to really be effective, and the Ravens put too much on Joe Flacco in this game. You look at the amount of passing attempts, 62, and you think to yourself, well, they were behind, and they lost the game by 22 points. He had to sling it. He already had over 30 attempts at halftime, so that's not an excuse. He was well on his way to throwing the football over 40 times, over 50 times, and so this Ravens attack was never balanced in this football game, and they didn't need to be heavy on the pass. They don't have the targets to be heavy on the pass, and they did it anyway, and so I thought they were digging themselves an early grave, and it caught up with them later on in this football game. You go back to the defense, and the secondary was ill-prepared. The linebackers were a non-factor in this game, and Dumerville and Suggs can't do it on their own. And so guys are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to fill in their roles. Last year, even though this defense wasn't that great, they had defined roles on this team. Ed Reed, playmaker. Bernard Pollard, enforcer. Haloti Ngata, controlling that defensive line. Even though these guys played well, but the defense didn't play well as a whole, you still had to look out for where Bernard Pollard was because he was going to light someone up. You had to find out where Ed Reed was on the field because he could make a play that could alter the outcome of the game. You still had to know where Haloti Ngata was because he controlled up front. But you look at this defense now, and there are a lot of question marks. Are guys going to be able to fill in roles? Are guys going to be able to make plays? Is this a defense that you have to fear? Because looking at them in this first week of the 2013 NFL regular season, it does not seem like the Ravens have a defense that is going to be much better than the one they put on the field last season. And that is very, very concerning if you're a Ravens fan. But it's only week 1. Do not hit the panic button just yet. That was a really good Denver Broncos team that you faced. And you were on the road in a game that you probably should not have been on the road for. And so, look, it was the first week. Yeah, you gave up 7 touchdowns. That's not good at all. But it's Peyton Manning. It's the Denver Broncos. Look, they got hot and you couldn't stop them once they got moving. And it happens sometimes. And so, if you're the Ravens, turn the page. Go to week 2. You got the Cleveland Browns at home. You get your Super Bowl rings. Turn it up. Divisional game, home opener, go out, rectify this thing, and get it back on the right track. Let's go to the Denver Broncos now. And before I leave the Ravens, Jacoby Jones goes down. That hurts. That stings. It not only killed them on special teams, but he was actually playing well at receiver early on in this game. It took away another option, and it took away the luster. I mean, Ladarius Webb was fair catching everything, even when he had space. So they really lost an element of their team when they lost Jacoby Jones in this game. And you look at Michael Orr going down, and they started getting pressure once he left the football game. And so these are injuries that the Ravens really need to figure out. How long are these guys going to be out? And do you have players that can step in and hold it down until these guys are able to come back and play football for you? Because there was a very, very distinct drop-off at both positions once these guys left the field. Not so much at wide receiver. I thought the receiver position, there wasn't that big of a drop-off with Brown coming in. And he looks good. 6'5", probably about 215, 220, catches the ball well with his hands. I think he's a guy that could fill in that second receiver role. I actually like him better than Jacoby Jones. That would allow you to put Jacoby Jones in the slot where he probably is more naturally suited, and I think your offense would be better because of it. And so I really liked what I saw out of him. And so that's something you can build off of. If there's nothing else you could take from the game, you might have found yourself a number 2 receiver. You look at the Denver Broncos in this game, and look, 7 touchdowns by Peyton Manning and this Denver Broncos offense. The rushing attack was the only area that you could say, hey, we really need to improve running the football. Was not impressed with what I saw out of the stable of backs. No Sean Moreno started the game. He really looks the same as always. He looks like no Sean Moreno like always. And so he's a guy that he started the game because of a high level of comfortability out of John Fox and this offensive staff. They feel like he knows the offense. He can protect Peyton Manning on third downs, but you got to inject some speed. You got to inject some athleticism. Monte Ball and Ronnie Hillman provide that for you. So I don't see no Sean Moreno being the guy that's going to be your starter at the running back position. And honestly, it doesn't matter who starts at the running back position. Everyone's going to play. Everyone's going to get touches. I think as the season wears on, Monte Ball will assume the role as the bell cow, the number one back that will be getting the bulk of the carries, and he will be offset by Ronnie Hillman. I think that's how it's all going to unfold later on. But for this particular game, I thought this offense looked really good. At times, the line was beat, but Peyton had enough time to do what he needed to do in this game. This offense is going to be a juggernaut, as it was last year. It's going to be even better now because you've got Julius Thomas. Juice stepped up in this game and played huge. You got Wes Welker. He's going to be a slot machine, as he always is. And it looks like he and Peyton Manning are on that same wavelength like he and Tom Brady were in New England. And so he's going to be dangerous. You still got Decker and Demaryius Thomas out wide. And so this offense is just going to be a handful week in and week out. If they can run the football, it'll add that much more potency to this offense. And they got it clicking in the second half. They scored 21 points in that quarter. They got the defense involved. They forced a few turnovers. Chris Harris looks really good at the cornerback position. Champ Bailey said that, hey, this guy's going to come in. He's going to make a play in this game. He's one of the most confident corners on this football team. I expect him to have a pick in this game. And voila, he went out and made a beautiful diving snag to really start this game for the Broncos, because they were really sleepwalking early on in this football game. That turnover led to the first touchdown of the game for the Broncos, got things jump started in the right direction, and they really never looked back from there. Even though they didn't take the lead until the third quarter, they never looked back after that first turnover. They settled down, got it going, and once they got it revved up, this offense showed you just a taste, just a snippet of what they can be. This is a dangerous Denver Broncos team, and right now, they're kind of shorthanded on the defensive side of the football. So if this offense is able to do what they were able to do in this game, and this defense is able to do what they were able to do in this game, limiting the opposing team, in this case the Baltimore Ravens, to less than 30 points, this offense is going to score over 30 points in most games. And if they can limit teams to 24, 21, 20, in this game they limited the Ravens to 27. They're going to win a lot of football games, and there was no Champ Bailey. There was no Von Miller in this game, and they still played really well. So if you're a Broncos fan, have to be encouraged with what you saw in this game. And I tell you what, if there was any doubt about where the Broncos were in the AFC Pantheon, and this game doesn't solidify anything. It doesn't mean that the Broncos are going to the Super Bowl. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the AFC West. But what it does say is that the Broncos are one of the better teams in the AFC, and it does reassure that if the Chiefs are going to make any noise in this division, and if they're going to try to win it, they got to go through the Denver Broncos, and that is not going to be an easy feat. It looks to be almost, and nothing's impossible, but it looks to be all but impossible to do that in the AFC West, because I think that the Denver Broncos are the team to beat in that division. The Denver Broncos look like they could be the team to beat in the AFC as a whole. And if they can play good football like this, consistently, like they did last season, but carry it into the postseason, this could be one of the most dangerous teams, not only in the AFC West, not only in the AFC, but in the National Football League. And so there you have it, a breakdown of the first game of the NFL 2013 regular season. It was fun, a lot of fireworks, a lot of things going on in this game. But the thing that I take away from this on both sides, starting with the Ravens, don't panic. Even though there is some cause for concern in this game, because everything that I talked about in the preseason going into the regular season was reaffirmed. You don't have any explosion on this offense outside of Torrey Smith. And with Jacoby Jones going down, some other players are really going to have to step up. And you need guys to step up. And this offense is lacking in weapons. Yes, that was reaffirmed in this game. And you're going to have to figure out ways to generate offense. Defensively, it's going to take a while for these guys. And this was kind of a surprise to me because I thought this defense would be a little bit better coming out of the gate. But this is a defense that is going to have to gel together. And they're going to have to figure out who's going to be doing what roles are everyone going to have, and they're going to have to figure out whose roles are what. They're going to have to define roles on this football team. Guys are going to have to figure out what their niche is within this defense, and they're going to have to figure out a way to make it happen on the defensive side of the football. This defense has to be better than it was a season ago, and so we'll see if they're able to figure it out. But the takeaway from the Ravens is nothing's as good as it seems, nothing's as bad as it seems. Somewhere in between, reality falls. Do not panic. If you're the Ravens, you look at the Denver Broncos, and the takeaway from this game is simply, they're really good. They're really good. 7 touchdowns? Peyton Manning, really? Opening day? Baltimore Ravens? Defending Super Bowl champions? You're going to disrespect them like that? Man, this team just doesn't care. And they're a dangerous group, and they look like one of the best teams, if not the best team right now in the AFC. And it's early. It's week 1. I mean, honestly, it's early. But they made a statement in week 1, did the Denver Broncos. And so that'll do it for me on this In the Lab Room exclusive. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time in the Lab Room. 7 touchdowns. Boy, that Peyton Manning. He's a bad, bad man.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up.
In the lab room.